Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pre-Chiro podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Glass, and today we're making a professional chiropractor connection with Dr. Walter Salubro. Dr. Walter, can you just introduce yourself and maybe reflect on that time where you were at in life when you decided you wanted to become a chiropractor?
Hi, Dr. Ben, and first of all, thanks for having me on your show. That was back in when I was in high school many years ago. Um, my entry to chiropractic was as a wellness patient, if you want to call it. My dad used to go to a chiropractor back in the 80s for a back problem. And one day he just asked the chiropractor, by the way, do you check kids? And he said, yes. Checked this on the table, got adjusted, and that was it. I started to eventually see the chiropractor for some headache problems that was really bothering me during the end of grade school and into the beginning of high school. Um, Somewhere around that time, my cousin became a chiropractor as well. So my chiropractor and my cousin kind of became my role models. But it didn't occur to me to become a chiropractor during this whole time. So I really never got into it from an emotional standpoint or an injury standpoint. Um, and then one day, my cousin at back in what was it in the early '90s basically said, what do you want to do with your life and your career? And I was thinking maybe accounting and business because I like numbers and math. And he goes, what about chiropractic? I go, you know what? That's such a great idea. And that's when the spark got lit, essentially. That was back in grade 12 or so in high school. And then from that point forward, that's the only thing I ever wanted to do was become a chiropractor. That was my only focus. The only purpose to go to university was to become a chiropractor, and that was it. Later on in my career is when I realized that it wasn't just a decision I made; it was actually a calling. And I figured that out over the years, over a lot of trial and error. But so I know I'm meant to be in this profession.
hmm And you bring up a great point, which is in today, specifically, just to keep it relevant, in today's world, the only real reason you should go to college is if you have an end goal in mind, because a lot of people will tell you a bachelor's degree is a little vague, it's not specific enough. And like you said, you went to college to become a chiropractor eventually. Obviously, there's multiple steps to that. But it's also interesting that you mentioned that it wasn't really until 12th grade that you decided that was what you wanted to do when you were being asked.
Mhm.
And do you think it's because even though you were exposed, it wasn't really present in your, in your field, in your world, in your middle school, and in the beginning of high school, in biology class, it wasn't ever really mentioned? I'm just curious if you could
No,
reflect on those
it,
times.
chiropractic was never ever talked about in my school at all. It was never talked about outside my experience with my chiropractor, and eventually my cousin who was a chiropractor. It wasn't even on the as an option as a career path. I was thinking more like accounting and business, and maybe one of my teachers was suggesting engineering, which I wasn't really into it, even though I like sciences. So that's why I realized when the idea came up, I knew for it just felt right. It just felt right. It's like, why didn't I think of that?
And so once you got into chiropractic school, talk about, what you gravitated towards. What did you really go deep with? What did you study and get passionate about?
When I went to chiropractic college, it was in the mid '90s, so '96 to '99. I went to National College of Chiropractic, which was the name at the time of that college, and I loved every single day of being chiropractic college. Like for me, it was like a blessing. I don't know. Like I loved the school at the time. I loved being a chiropractor. I enjoyed every aspect. I mean, there were some courses I didn't care for as much, like histology and biochemistry, but you have to go through them, right? I like the technique courses and I like the anatomy classes as well, even though a lot of the students didn't really, they just wanted to get through anatomy and that was it. We did gross anatomy and dissections for like 4 semesters, which was like, I don't know, like a year and a half. But I realized that was my only time ever to really learn anatomy and to get hands-on with human cadavers. So I even tutored anatomy over the rest of my time there. So I like that kind of stuff. Um, and I also got involved with the admissions class. Being a Canadian in the United States, I was a liaison person for the admissions office. I should say not the class, but admissions office, where I talked to a lot of the prospective Canadian students that were looking to come to from Canada to an American college, and why national was a good option for them. So I really enjoyed that part as well.
Right on. And obviously, within the profession, national is looked at as being maybe on one side of the spectrum, just like a number of other schools
Yeah,
are. It's not the only one, but I'm just curious why you chose national, and now looking back,
yeah.
or even just reflecting now on 20 years have gone by or more, how national has evolved. Would you still recommend students go in that direction? Where are you recommending students these days. And if you don't feel comfortable saying a specific school, that's totally fine. I'm wanting to show students that schools are different. Depending on which school you go to, you're going to have a different experience. I know because I went to a school like National and then I transferred to a different school completely different than National. So that's part of why I'm creating this project. I want there to be more transparency of what this career path looks like and how you have different directions you can go.
So, there's a lot of choices that come into play when you're picking a school. So for me, I grew up in Toronto during my early years. So the school that made sense was the one that was closest to me. Having said that, I didn't even know that many other schools existed in the world, let alone the United States. So I really at the time knew about Davenport, which was the original, Palmer College. I knew about Parker, and then National would come to our school at York University to do like orientation sessions. So I was aware about them. It was really challenging to get into the Toronto school. They accepted a very small number of students. So I tried once, didn't get in. I realized that was not going to be a viable option. So I needed a backup option. So that's when I started investigating different schools, and National was the one that resonated with me. At the time, I loved it. I loved every aspect of being at National College of Chiropractic. I mean, I enjoyed being a student there. The biggest thing I have to say to kids or students that are picking colleges, first of all, make sure the college treats you well. Make sure that the administration, the teachers respect you as a student. I hear a lot of crazy stories where students are talked down to, feel like they're stupid in front of their, teachers or professors. That shouldn't be like that, number one. Number two, yes, you need a strong science background and a diagnostic background. So National provided that, but you also need chiropractic principles, and you need to be taught and need to learn how to essentially find the subluxation, vertebral subluxation, and how to correct it. So you need to pick a school that does that. And if the school that you're going to doesn't offer that, that's a discussion maybe we can get into. You have to figure that out somewhere else. Okay, so even though I felt really confident in my adjusting skills at National, they really provided maybe one or two different techniques there. I became a more proficient technique person and adjuster later on in life by taking seminars, continuing education seminars, things like Thompson technique, neurology seminars, CBP, chiropractic biophysics certifications. So you have to master a technique minimum, and then if you know a couple, it's even better. So those are big things. So learn how to find a subluxation, learn how to correct it. And the third most important thing is you need to know how to communicate to patients. And a lot of times colleges don't teach that. And I can understand why, because they have a curriculum that's to stick to, but you have to learn how to become a master communicator. If you cannot communicate how you're able to help the patient, your listening skills of what their needs are and what you're offering, so they know why they're coming to you, it's going to be hard for you to build a practice. And the last thing I need to add to that is, that ties it all together, is you need confidence. You need confidence and conviction in what you're offering as a chiropractor. And that's one of the biggest things I think lacks in our profession, especially in the younger doctors in school or coming out of it, is they have to build their conviction of what they're offering. They need to realize that you're as a chiropractor, you're the only person or profession in the world that can correct someone's spine non-surgically. And when you look at people that are suffering out there, other than medications, injections, and maybe surgery, you're really their only option from a non-conservative approach to correct their spinal problem. So you need to have the conviction that you can offer that.
Right on. Can you talk about your training and getting a certification in CBP? Can you provide a little bit of detail? We've interviewed Dr. Deed. We've interviewed a number of people that are involved with CBP, but I'm just wondering if from the chiropractor standpoint, you could talk about what was involved in that process, how long did it take, how many hours did you put in not only at the seminars but also in your clinic refining your skills, and obviously it's still happening today, but if you could just keep elaborating on the details involved in that path.
For sure. So CBP, or chiropractic biophysics, is one of the primary techniques I use, the full spine technique. I know there are several colleges that offer it as a core part of their curriculum or as an elective. I think Life University and Life West, if I'm not mistaken. So if that's a reason to choose a college, those would be really good options. So I first got introduced with or to chiropractic biophysics back in, I think, 2008 or so. Actually, let me back up a bit. When I was at National College of Chiropractic, I was a learner. I like to read books and learn stuff even outside the curriculum. So in the journal stacks, the scientific journals, I saw a lot of the early research publications of chiropractic biophysics, some of the early the early publications of their spinal model and mathematical models. But as a student, I didn't understand any of it. So I copied a lot of them, stacked them, stored them away. So that was really my first introduction when I was in school, but no one really taught it to me. Later on, I started to mentor and coach with different chiropractors that were doing what they called corrective care. So that enlightened me a bit more of, doing global corrections versus specific subluxation corrections. And even though they were suggesting to apply certain techniques and certain, home traction devices, things weren't just sitting right, because I realized that some devices don't correct all things when it comes to the spine, global spinal correction. So I started taking courses. The first course I took was back in 2009. So from there, I kind of took courses along the way, like weekend courses when they were offered throughout the weekend. So I knew it was a technique that I wanted to apply into the office. Chiropractic ball physics is a technique that it's phenomenal. It's backed up by over 200 plus research publications. You can't just take a weekend course and think you know it. Okay, you have to take a course and take the other course and the other course. And the most important thing is you need to apply it into your office. You need to apply the technique into your office with your patients, because the learning curve comes as you're applying it with your patients. And then maybe things are not working out, you're not getting the outcomes you're looking for or wanting. Then you go back to the trainings again, and then you'll refresh some of the things you'll learn new things that you probably missed before, come back and apply it again. And that's what I did over and over and over again. And then back into 2017, I go, you know what, I just need to do this full certification. So I did the 8-day certification, got tested, got certified. And that's when I realized, that it's time to do this full time with the equipment and the protocols and everything. And then back in 2019, I did the advanced certification. And so that was another 8-day course, plus the weekend hands-on in 2020. And I'm just literally one module away from being advanced certified. I need to deliver my case study to the annual symposium, their annual conference that they have. So that's the next step for me. And then, of course, on top of that, you can never stop learning with any technique that you're in. But with this, I always purchase like their online modules or their home learning CDs, or have their textbooks handy. There's always something on a regular basis that I'm listening to or learning to when it comes to this technique. So it's kind of an ongoing learning and ongoing practice.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And how have you applied it in your practice? I know that obviously we're going to get into your YouTube presence now. Talk about how you've been able to translate your clinical results into a format or a medium that is easily digestible by the general public, and that you're able to connect deeper with the general public about what we do beyond just neck pain, back pain.
That's a good question. So first of all, my philosophy is that you need to meet where people are at. That's number one. You start talking about principles and subluxation and neurology and all the amazing things that chiropractic can offer to everyone. They may not connect at that right away, because that's not their basic need or their problem that they need to be solved in the moment. So you need to connect with where people are with your communication. So whether you're writing blog articles, which is what I started with years ago, or videos, or online videos, which I think are the top things you should be doing right now on to get your communication out. You need to meet where people are at. You need to think about the solutions that they're looking for. What are their problems? What are their limitations? What are their needs, essentially? So it may be like an L4, L5 disc bulge problem and leg pain and sciatica. And then once you meet them where they're at and you show them what you can do for that, they come into your office because of that. And then you can expand your education on all the other things that you want to talk about chiropractically. So the most important thing is solving a need, providing an answer to an unanswered question for that potential patient, and then providing a solution for what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk specifically about some of the depth and insight that you provide to people that, as a chiropractor, you have the ability and awareness of, that maybe another professional might not, that has really attracted a lot of people to learn from you? Because obviously there's something about the way you're delivering your message around specifically disc bulges, and I would love if you could provide like a prospective student, like what is a disc bulge, some of the basic anatomy around that, and also some of the implications involved that we're seeing throughout society.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to talk about when it comes to that. You covered a lot of concepts. So first of all, in your communication, whether it's a video or blogs or whatever it is, people are looking for a solution. So let's say they have a diagnosis of a disc bulge, which is a disc injury. There's a lesion in the annular fibers. There's a bulging that either is causing local inflammation or some kind of nerve irritation. So they have that diagnosis, and that's all they're thinking about is my disc bulge, my disc bulge, my disc bulge. Can you fix my disc bulge? It's causing me these problems. But what they're missing is the big picture. Even though there's a disc injury, L405 or L5S1 or C5C6, well, I want to know what caused that disc injury. Was it a traumatic incident at one time, which is usually on the rare side, or is it something where the structure of the spine got distorted or someone's posture got distorted globally that's contributing to that disc injury over many years? So in my videos, I'm talking to them about, even though you have this problem, you have this injury and these symptoms and it's affecting your life, we need to look at the structure of your spine, which is probably the most common thing that was not analyzed. See, a lot of patients got the diagnosis of the disc injury. They've been to specialists. They've had their injections. They've had their medications. They've been to therapies of different types. They've been to chiropractors where they're not getting adjusted. They're given all kinds of functional rehab, but no one's ever looked at their entire spine from top to bottom, front and side. And if they're missing that global alignment picture, then there's no way that this problem can ever be fixed. So for me, my message is that I'm not here to fix your disc injury. They ask me, when is my disc going to get better, or how are you going to fix my disc? Well, we're not fixing your disc injury. We're fixing the spinal distortion that led to that. And that's what I think is the reason why people connect with me. I had someone just recently, he literally drives an hour and 45 minutes just west of here, all by highway to get to my office. And the reason why is because the chiropractor he went to see was hesitant to adjust his spine because of his disc injuries. Now, when I looked at his x-rays, because of all the the retrolisthesis and the lateral listhesis and the disc damage and loss of spinal curve, that was a good decision based on that chiropractor's knowledge base. So I said, you know what, the chiropractor did a good thing, but there are things we can do. But the only reason why he's here is because he realized in my videos that it made sense to work on the structure before anything else. So that's the big picture that's missing for a lot of people that are looking for help. And you can connect that with any other symptom in the body. It can be arm pain, tingling, shoulder pain, upper back pain, postural distortions, headaches, dizziness, you name it. If there's a global structural distortion that's being missed, and they're just patching it up with, other types of therapies, they'll never be 100%. They'll never reach their full potential in terms of healing.
Mm-hmm. And you touched on neurology, you touched on Thompson technique. Can you talk about the tools that you use in your clinic? Like, can you walk us through, walk a prospective student or a chiropractic student through the patient experience when they engage with you and they come into your office? What are they going through? What are you looking at? Talk about maybe the details of your exam or the details of your care plan or the tools that you're using, how you're adjusting them, what the mindset is that you have.
For sure. So the first interaction comes with the initial telephone call. So whether they book online or call us, that's the first interaction. And the whole purpose of the telephone call is to basically get them in the office. So I'm not going to go through our script and all that stuff, but the key with that is you want to be able to tell them that we can help them possibly. We need to examine them first and then clear all their questions they may have, all their objections or obstacles. And they may have a bunch, time and money and taking x-rays and so forth. Want to get adjusted on day one, which we don't do unless it's really, 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 really urgent and necessary. We need to see what their spine looks like and what their findings are before I want to begin to adjust them. So that's the first experience. Once they're in the office, then we take them through our intake forms. A lot of times we want them to fill their intake forms at home. It saves us time in the office. So we have a patient intake form, and we also use outcome measures, which I highly recommend to all docs out there and the students when you start practicing. Use questionnaires like Oswestry and Roland Morris and neck disability and headache disability, SF36, which I know Deet Harrison talks a lot about, and that's what affirmed me to use them, because you with those questionnaires at the very beginning, you can quantify their subjective complaints and then compare them on your progress exams later on, which is super valuable to see how they're progressing. And on a note about that, just before I guide you through the rest of it, a lot of times patients are concerned only about their symptomatology, and they're not thinking about all the other improvements that they're experiencing, like their posture, their ability to walk a straight line, heel to toe without wobbling, their mobility, their daily functional activities. If they're just stuck on their pain, right, just their pain only, their symptoms, well, we can show them on their questionnaires that you went from like 40 out of 50 on your low back questionnaire, and now you're 20, and then you're 50, and now you're 5. So yes, you're actually improving, even though you think that you're not, because based on your symptoms. Okay, so that's very, very important to understand that. In the examination, we're doing a history. A lot of that comes from the intake form, and then we get into the exam. So I look at, I do a subluxation a check, I do a Deerfield Thompson check. We do tandem walking or heel toe walking to see how well they're walking in a straight line, range of motion. I do a visual posture check, a nerve scan, bilateral balance scales, and based on the case, if required, I'll do grip strength and then upper and lower extremity neurology, that kind of stuff. If it's a scoliosis case, we'll use a scoliometer as well. And then we take full spine x-rays, AP and lateral. So that's basically takes you up to the exam point.
Mm-hmm. And then talk about, once they've committed to care, what are they committing to? And then, ideally, what is the experience like of how you work with them and build this relationship and take care of them over an extended period of time?
For sure. So after the exam, we set up a results day to go over the results or report of findings day. And then that's when we basically show them what a normal spine looks like, what their spine looks like, how it's related to their current problem, and what we can do to help, and how long I think it's going to take. So, it's hard to predict the timing of when people get well. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, everyone's case is different. So, the key is knowing as a doctor, based on your clinical examination, how confident you feel that they are going to get well at some point, and then you just need to reassure the patient about that. But you need to give them some kind of guidelines. So typically, our initial care plans are 12 weeks. Anywhere from, can be 3 times a week for 12 weeks or 3 times a week for 8 weeks, and then twice a week for 4 weeks. I do 3 progress exams once a month. So month 1, month 2, month 3. And we repeat all the exact same spinal testing we did on day 1 at each exam, except the third one I retake an x-ray to see what they're doing with their spine. Having said that, the reason I use x-ray is because it's an assessment tool to assess their spinal alignment, to rule out any reasons why they should not receive certain techniques, or if there's any red flags or instabilities, curvatures that shouldn't be there. So you want to assess their spine so you know what to do and what not to do. And then, because we're doing corrective care, structural corrective care in office and at home, it's also used as an outcome measure, as an outcome tool to see how they responded to the structural care, where the changes have occurred, if anything, and what needs to be done from that point forward. So, and then in the day-to-day visits, we usually start off with adjustments. I do Thompson technique, sometimes some diversified, but mostly Thompson technique. I use an Omni table, which has some nice, crisp, strong drops, pretty sturdy table. And so straightforward adjustments, segmental adjustments, usually for the first 5 or 6 visits while they're in that painful acute stage. And then we start to progress into home traction protocols, some home posture exercises, and then we progress them a couple of days later into our in-office rehab area if they need that. Some people may just need home traction work and rehab on top of their adjustments. Some people need the more advanced work in the office. And then the in-office rehab program is, even though we have a baseline what we start with, kind of gets built up day by day over the next several weeks until they get through all their reps and their time cycles and everything. And then just keep repeating that throughout the whole time until they get to their reevaluation.
Sweet. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Can you talk about your work that you're doing with chiropractors on YouTube? What types of services you're offering, or where your passion is at with helping chiropractors reach more people?
Yeah, for sure. So whether you're a student or an existing chiropractor, you need to get your voice out there. There are a lot of tools that exist today that didn't exist when I first graduated. I mean, when I first graduated, it was like the yellow pages, if anyone even remembers that. Maybe some flyers you can get out there, and some public events, which were good at the time. But now everyone's online, and the pretty soon, if not now, like, the internet's being taken over by video. Most people consume their content by video, and also video elevates your brand awareness online as well. So it's a super important medium to be using to get your message across. So there's a lot of platforms that have video. They all are positioned in a different way. So my advice is to pick at least one platform and master it. Okay. So for me, that was YouTube. I do a lot of things on Facebook as well, a little bit on Instagram, but I decided to pick YouTube as the one platform. if you think about it, just in your own experience, whether you're a doc or a student, if you're searching for, let's say your car breaks down or your fridge breaks down or something breaks down in your dorm or something, and you want to look for an answer to get it fixed, what is the first thing you're looking at? Either Google or YouTube. They're both owned by Google. So that's where people go either for entertainment or to get their questions or problems solved. So as a chiropractor, you're a problem solver. So if you can make videos in things that you're passionate about in your niche, because you need to niche down on YouTube, that can answer people's questions, that give a ton of value in the moment through either exercise tips or a knowledge about what you know and what you can do to help people, demonstration of different exam procedures or adjustments, give something that they can actually appreciate and value. And then they'll keep watching more and more of your videos. And at some point, someone in your local market will say, you know what, I need help by this doctor. And in my experience and in my opinion, I think YouTube is the most important platform for a doctor to be on or a chiropractor to be on. And that's why I decided to do that. And then back in 2020, when we had the pandemic start, we were essentially shut down for 10 weeks. So I'm a type of person, I cannot not do nothing. So I have to do something. And I've always wanted to make a course, an actual online training course for chiropractors, because I've had a ton of questions of people asking me, you know, how did you build your YouTube channel? How do you get so many subscribers? You know, how do you write video titles and descriptions and tags and thumbnails and all that stuff? So I made basically an online course to answer all those questions. And as far as I know, even though there's other courses out there, it's the only course that's for chiropractors by a chiropractor that's only exclusively about YouTube. It's called Chiro Creators YouTube Academy. Is it okay if I give a link out for some more information? So I have a cool little webinar you can watch for free that gives a lot of value in there. It's Chiro Creators, that's with an S, so chirocreators.com/webinar, and just plug in your email, you get a link, or the next page is the webinar page, and you'll see what I'm talking about in terms of my experience with positioning yourself as an expert, how to pick keywords to create your titles and your videos, and then how to basically funnel people watching those videos into your office as a new patient, which is completely possible with YouTube. So I've taught these techniques to other chiropractors. One doc that I taught, he's from Newmarket, just close to where I live and practice. His channel was originally 60 subscribers when I first worked with him. And now he's actually about 92,000 subscribers. He's going to be hitting 100,000 pretty soon. So he's going to get a silver plaque from YouTube. And he gets about 1 to 2 new patients a week from his YouTube channel. You know, and right now he's publishing maybe a video once a month or once every 2 months, because it's like on autopilot. So it's a bit of a different approach than running Facebook ads, which I also do, and TikTok videos and Instagram. But the key difference with YouTube is it's evergreen. It never disappears. It's always there. Whereas on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, once it's on your feed, once they scroll through the next few minutes, it's gone unless people look for it. So it gives you a major advantage.
Mm-hmm. Just a final message to a high school, college student thinking about going in this direction. Do you have any sort of advice? Do you have any recommendation to them?
Yes, for sure. Visit, if you're thinking about becoming a chiropractor, visit a variety of different chiropractors in your area. Most chiropractors will, or offices, I should say, they'll take on, you know, a visitor if they're interested in if they're seeing that they're interested in chiropractic. Shadow them for a couple hours, for half a day. Don't just pick one office, pick different offices. Different practitioners practice in different ways. There's family practice, there's corrective care like myself, there's pediatric practices, there's sports injury, workers' comp, PI. One of those may resonate with you more than the other, right? Not one is better than the other. They're all useful. So visit different chiropractors. Also call the school up, you know, in your local area. See if you can get a tour. That's one of the things we did at National. We gave tours to high school students. But those are the first 2 things I would do. Is I would visit a chiropractor. If there's, I would also recommend you get a spinal check, even if it's a well checkup by a local chiropractor. Go in with your parents if you're under the age of 18, and at least get your posture checked. I'm sure they'll find something that can be worked on. Like this, you can actually experience chiropractic yourself and what it can do for you.
Awesome. Sweet. That's a wrap.